The Nerdcast Empire is on the air. We are back a little bit early this week, but we are here with some more hard rock and heavy metal excellence here on the Hard Rock Empire for Sunday, August the 3rd. We are on to the month of August, and we're going to be taking a step back, and we'll be talking about the music of July the 11th this week. Not a lot of albums, but having said that, it was an excellent week of music, so we'll be talking about that coming up in our second segment after a couple of news headlines. We'll go into the vault where we'll talk about a couple of classic albums that we enjoy that we want to pass along to you, and then, of course, we'll wrap up with our question of the week in the Power Trio. Joining me in the studio, as always, is Mike. Mike, how's it going?
It's going. Not a lot of new music this week, but, man, a lot of good music. I was definitely impressed with the variety of choice we had for a week that, you know, we have weeks where we have over 100 albums on the list, and last couple weeks has not been that plentiful, but just the percentage of that music that I've found enjoyable has been unnaturally high, which is always a great thing.
Yeah, it was a really good week as far as quality music, and there are several bands that we easily could have picked, and it just didn't work out that way this week, but a lot of great stuff on the playlist. We'll paste the playlist into the chat when we get to the new music in the second segment. But you're definitely going to want to go through it this week. If you're a fan of the music we talk about on this podcast, there's a lot to like this week, well beyond the four bands that we're going to spotlight. Chris joining us in the chat all the way from Tennessee this week. Great to have Chris along with us as well. And one other addition this week, you may notice if you are watching on Twitch, you won't see it obviously on YouTube, but on Twitch is you have the opportunity to subscribe to our channel now. That is an actual option available. We still have to meet the affiliate status to actually get payouts, so we'll have to reach a certain number of viewers for each episode to be able to do that. But everything else, we're ready to go. So once we hit that affiliate mark, any subscriptions, we get a portion of that. And again, that's just money that's going to get reinvested back into the podcast. So big thanks to everyone for helping us get to that point. And once we get to the affiliate status, again, more cool things on the way. So we definitely appreciate that. And of course, we have a Discord as well. And I'll actually remember to paste it into the chat at the beginning of the podcast this week instead of at the very end. So you can join the Discord, and we post our stream schedules in there. We have discussions in there. Anytime we have our question of the week, we definitely encourage you to give your input in there. So definitely check out our Discord. We definitely want you to come by and visit us and learn all things Nerdcast Empire. But so a lot of stuff going on. We are early this week. Of course, WWE is running SummerSlam, a 2-night spectacular. It starts at 6 p.m. Eastern time. So we wanted to get our podcast in and out so that we could have everything finished and be able to enjoy the second night of SummerSlam, which will be coming up in about an hour and a half here on the East Coast. But we got to get some news headlines first. That's where we're going to start. Just a couple of news headlines this week. And you know, the first one I just thought was interesting because it's a name that has come up on this podcast before. We talk about Anthrax from time to time. We talk about John Bush from time to time. And this is a story from Metal Injection that John Bush is going to be doing some shows with Anthrax coming up. We'll paste that story in the chat. Of course, John Bush spent about a decade as the front man of Anthrax, and coming up in December, they will be playing some exclusive shows, which will feature songs off of the albums that he was the front man of Anthrax for. I think there are a lot of people that have been kind of hoping this would happen at some point, just to have a chance for him to be honored for his time in the band. Obviously, we've talked a lot about Anthrax and their legendary status in metal history, but the John Bush era is one that maybe, I don't want to say gets overlooked, but maybe sometimes more modern fans might forget his contributions. Mike, I know you're kind of our professor of all things metal. Your thoughts on John Bush getting a chance to do a little bit of reuniting with Anthrax coming up?
Yeah, just to clarify, he's not playing with Anthrax.
Oh, did I misread that? Oh.
Yeah, he is doing 3 shows where he's going to be doing his songs from Anthrax,
Gotcha.
celebrating his time in the band. He's going to be playing with mainly his Category 7 bandmates, Phil Demmel, Mike Orlando, Jason Bittner, along with Joey Vera, who's going to be taking over for Jack Gibson.
Gotcha.
Some scheduling conflicts. So, yeah, it's going to be John Bush, mainly with Category 7,
Gotcha.
doing material from his Anthrax days.
Okay.
That includes 4 albums between 1993 and 2003. Sound of White Noise, Stomp 442, Volume 8, The Threat is Real, and We've Come for You All. Yeah, it's funny. I think you'll find fans that kind of feel either way about it. There are those who prefer Belladonna and think he's just kind of the voice of Anthrax, but you also have those who thought that kind of the new edge that they got with Bush on vocals, because, I mean, he has a more metal voice, I think. I think that's a fair statement. There are people who prefer that period of the band. I think they're both great. I've said it before. I think Anthrax, out of the big 4 bands, has the 2 best singers out of all of them. I would put Belladonna and Bush above Hetfield, Mustaine, Araya any day of the week. They all bring something different, obviously, but I think as far as just vocal power, those 2, they're just head and shoulders above the rest. These dates are in Los Angeles, St. Charles, Illinois, and New York City. This is really cool because, for me, when I got into Anthrax, by the time I got into them, they were well into the John Bush era. The first new album of Anthrax I got was 2003's We've Come for You All. And that was a pretty cool thing because Anthrax in 2003, that I don't know how serious the criticism or the calls for it were, but there was the talk of, hey, maybe they're going to change their name because in a post 9/11 world, you had a lot of instances of Anthrax being mailed to people, and the name itself kind of had this negative connotation, which for what Anthrax truly is, it should have a negative connotation. But, it was kind of cool to get that new album, We've Come for You All, in 2003, and you open it up and you see kind of the picture of them in their jumpsuits that each have a word spelling out, we're not changing our name. Like, it was kind of a cool moment. And yeah, I also think back around that time, they released an album, a compilation album, Anthrax, The Greater of Two Evils, where they basically had John Bush go back and they re-recorded a bunch of their classic songs with John Bush on vocals, which is kind of a weird thing because, I mean, these were all Belladonna songs primarily. There were a couple older tracks, but it's just wild to think that was how they felt about John Bush compared to Belladonna at the time, and here we are all these years later, and Belladonna's back and kicking it with the band, so yeah, definitely a cool thing, though. And it would be a cool, not that I'm near any of these cities, but if I were, it would definitely be something cool to see.
Interesting with the 3 dates. It's just, I mean, it is all across the country. One on the West Coast, one in kind of the Midwest, and one on the East Coast. So
all in December.
All in December. Not necessarily the best time to travel.
Pick up and go to
especially
Illinois.
Right before Christmas. Also a time that's maybe not the best time to get on an airplane. But, obviously, it does feel like this era maybe not celebrated as much as it should be, and this is really cool that he's getting a chance to play these songs. And, it would be interesting to see if somewhere down the road there is a chance for him to do some shows with Anthrax, if there's a way for that to happen where he can come in and do the songs from his era. I mean, we've seen that with some other bands where they've everybody's made amends or everybody's kind of on good terms. Don't know if that's possible in this scenario somewhere down the road, but this is probably the next best thing, getting a chance to play with guys that he's comfortable with, and a chance still to go out, and if you want to kind of relive that decade of Anthrax, you're going to be able to do it with his band.
Yeah, I think what would be cool is if they could pull it off would be have Anthrax touring with, like, Armored Saint, have obviously Bush singing with Armored Saint. Maybe you could even have Belladonna do some of, like, his cover stuff that he does a lot of, like, classic arena rock and songs like that he does, and then finish with Anthrax where they're both kind of trading off vocals. I think that would be a pretty cool thing, but who knows?
Yeah, I guess we'll see if that's something that they're interested in doing, if they all kind of get along well enough to actually be able to pull that off, or whether that's not going to happen. You never know in metal. Sometimes these relationships are touch and go.
I mean, supposedly new Anthrax isn't that far away, so I'm kind of excited for that.
Yeah.
It's been a while for those guys.
I feel like we've seen a lot of stories about them being in the studio and getting ready to release something new. So we'll keep our eye out for that. And again, if you're in L.A. or St. Charles, Illinois, or in New York in December, a chance to see John Bush do some classic Anthrax stuff. And who knows, maybe if it's popular enough, it might kind of spark the idea of something bigger somewhere down the road. The other story today is I mean, I don't want to say it's not really a story, but it's just we saw a music video this weekend, and I felt like I wanted to at least bring this up on the podcast because everybody should go see this music video. Obviously, they are in the midst of working on a new Spinal Tap 2, The End Continues. And as part of all of this, they're releasing a new album, I guess, with the movie, The End Continues. And in the article posted on Blabbermouth, it has the track listing of the article. But really what is noteworthy and what everybody should go look up is their live rendition of Stonehenge with Elton John.
Yeah.
Totally did not expect Elton John. Obviously, it's written on the video, so you kind of figured it out pretty quick. But that was so good. Like, first off, it's great to see Elton John doing well because I know he's been battling some health issues. He sounds great still, and sounds like he belongs in the band. Like it's just a perfect fit somehow with that song and the video and everything that went with it. Spinal Tap may be it's certainly one of the best music movies of all time. Just as far as like mockumentaries and things like that, it's kind of a gold standard.
Yeah.
But kind of cool to see them doing something new, and again bringing in some more prominent artists on this release, and presumably in the movie as well.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited for this. I feel like this is Spinal Tap kind of created the whole mockumentary genre. If not, it at least made it something that I wanted to watch.
Yeah.
And I think of how many movies and TV shows that kind of borrowed from that concept. I mean, you even think of something like both the British and the American Office, like that. In a lot of ways, you kind of have the little like camera side talking to the individuals. I just think that was definitely influential. Excited for this, and just honestly watching the video, and they kind of mix in some old footage with new footage. I'm just glad to see that Michael McKean, Christopher Guest, and Harry Shearer are still around to do this. Like, that alone is something to be excited about. But yeah, looking at the track list for the new album, obviously you have Elton John, which he appears in the Stonehenge video, but you also have a track like Cups and Cakes featuring Paul McCartney, and Big Bottom, which is a classic song, featuring Garth Brooks and Trisha Yearwood. So really excited for this. I think this could be a really cool thing. And the article also mentions Nigel Tufnell, the character from the movie, appearing on some Nat Geo documentary about Stonehenge. So I looked on YouTube, and sure enough, back from the early 2000s, or might have been mid-2000s, like 17 years ago, at least when they were uploaded to YouTube, there are videos where they're interviewing him again about Stonehenge, I guess in conjunction with some documentary they produced. But just to hear him talk about Stonehenge in like an interview setting, they're great videos. They're all really short, but worth checking out. And yeah, definitely excited for this movie.
Yeah, sometimes when you have these sequels that are so many years later, you wonder, like, can you recapture the thing that made This Is Spinal Tap great? And it does feel like, I mean, again, seeing that video, you just think, well, that's a pretty good start. Like, clearly something as ridiculous as bringing Elton John in to sing, vocals on Stonehenge is right up there. And you mentioned some of the other ones as well. It is, I think, if it didn't start the mockumentary trend, it certainly perfected it in a lot of ways. And, I can't remember, and I'd have to look it up, where that fell in like Rob Reiner's career, because obviously he had either just before or just after this, you had The Princess Bride, which was another all-time classic movie. It just, again, if you haven't seen this and you're a fan of rock and metal, the original This Is Spinal Tap, you absolutely are doing yourself a disservice to not go back and watch it. And hopefully the second one will live up to that as well. But great to see them all out there doing it. And again, it looks like it's going to be very tongue-in-cheek. And, I feel like there's not necessarily enough just comedy in the movie theaters these days. I think everybody loves to laugh, and I think this is a great way to bring that to the people. So should be good, I would think.
I would hope so, yeah.
So we'll keep an eye on that as more news comes out as it gets closer to release. We'll definitely keep an eye on what is coming out of the new This Is Spinal Tap movie, Spinal Tap 2. The End Continues, coming out on September the 12th. So that is our news headlines for this week. Don't forget to check out our website, nerdcastempire.com. Of course, we've got lots of stuff there, previous episodes, We'll be back again next Sunday night, 7 o'clock Eastern Time, with another episode of the Hard Rock Empire. It'll be the music of July the 18th next week. And it's got a lot to live up to because July 11th was very, very loaded. But we will see if it can meet that task next week. So join us then once again. But it is time to get to the new music for this week, which means it is time for me to paste the playlists into the chats on both YouTube and Twitch. This is the playlist that Mike puts together every week. He will go through, pull a list of all the new releases. He'll pull one song off of those releases and put them on this playlist. Of course, the date in question is July the 11th in this case, and then he goes through all the songs, and then I will come in afterward, and we'll each pick 2 new releases to spotlight on the podcast. And this was a loaded week, and there were a few releases that I was a little bummed that I just didn't have another pick, which, again, I guess I could have. It's our show. We can change the rules as we see fit, but we do try to stay within our boundaries. And, you know, one that comes to mind, and if there are any others you want to mention before we kind of get into the ones we picked, there's a great release from Frontiers this week from a band called Double Vision. Clearly, you know, Foreigner tribute, but this is not a cover album. This is new material, and I was absolutely blown away with how good this was.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when a band as good as Foreigner is kind of your template for what you want to create sonically, as long as you can write songs, you should sound really good at it, and I think these guys definitely did that.
Another one I wanted to spotlight, and then I'll throw it to you in case there's any others you want to mention. The live album from Steve Hackett was out this week. You know, one of the comments on the video for that, and I encourage everybody to check it out, was The Lamb Lives on Broadway. Is that the name of the song?
The album. Or the original album. Not the live album is Lamb Stands Up or live at Royal Albert Hall.
Okay, yes. I meant the track on the video on the playlist. I couldn't remember which song it was.
Maybe that's what I pulled. I don't remember now.
But anyway, there was a comment on there that basically said that his lead singer for Steve Hackett sounds like a combination of Peter Gabriel and Phil Collins. And like when I read that comment and then I listened to that song, it's like, yeah, like there are times he sounds like Peter Gabriel and there are times he sounds like Phil Collins, which is pretty wild. But you know,
the guy has a great voice. There's no doubt about that.
And it's like you said, I feel like Genesis is a band I probably haven't done justice to, and going back and really digging into their catalog. We've talked about Yes, we've talked about Rush, obviously. But it feels like Genesis is one that is still probably best known by most people, the Phil Collins era on as lead singer. But I really kind of want to go back and check out more of their back catalog.
Yeah, and that's natural because obviously that was when they shifted more toward a commercial sound. Obviously, the earlier stuff is very proggy and still really good. And obviously, that's the era that you've had your Steve Hackett's in. So that's the stuff that he does on this live album. Obviously, is very the old Genesis stuff, but it's really good. Sounds great live, and yeah, their singer, the guy singing for him, whose name I totally forgot.
Yeah, I can't remember his name off the top of my head
because I think he actually has like a solo album coming out too. Nad Sylvan's his name.
Okay,
I think he has something coming out at some point, or has already. Let's see.
I mean, he's really talented. That was a really excellent release.
Let's see, where are we at? 2025, Monumentata.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know
when that's coming out or if it's already come out, but something soon from him, which is the one thing about a lot of these bands is a lot of times they have these as a group release things, but these guys also are doing all these individual.
Yeah, I don't recall this being on the list when it came out, but it came out on June 20th.
Okay.
That's definitely one I need to check out because this guy's got a tremendous voice.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I guess not everything necessarily makes it on these lists. They're pretty comprehensive, but it's certainly possible a few things don't make it onto the list. But anything else that jumped out at you that I didn't mention before we get into the stuff that we actually picked this week?
Let's see. What did I listen to? There was a band, German progressive metal band, Philosophophobia.
Oh, okay.
Their album, The Constant Void, that was really solid. Let's see. The Iyashi Core thing was really interesting.
That was very fascinating.
Their album, Garashi. Tagged as anime core, metal, electronic core, and post-hardcore. It's very, very electronic, very different, but As far as creativity points, I say they get full marks for it, and it's something that I kind of want to like dive more into to see, just to hear all of it.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's see.
I know there was another Frontiers band that I listened to a little bit of that I really liked as well. They had 3 releases this week.
Yeah, what was the other one there? Frontiers. Let's see, Double Vision. Oh, Eternal Idol had the album Behind a Vision. They're Italian metal band. Always solid Italian metal bands and bands from Frontiers, so can't go wrong there. Had some live albums from some classic bands. Girl School released their Running Wild live in London. Who was the other? The other was Diamond Head. They released a live album, Live in Electric. They sound really good still too.
They do.
But yeah, a lot of good stuff, whether it be re-releases, live albums, or some of these newer bands that we're discovering.
Also, shout out to Boguslaw Balsarax Crylord, who had another album out this week. I didn't get a chance to listen to the whole thing, but the first track off of it sounds really good, so not a surprise we picked them on a previous podcast. So, again, there's a ton of stuff out there this week, so I think if you go through the playlist, I guarantee there's going to be a handful of things you're going to want to pick up this week. It was a really good week of music, but alas, we do limit ourselves to 2 picks each, so with that being said, it is time to get to Mike's first pick of the week. Mike, what do you have for us?
Yeah, so for my pick number 1, we are heading to Austria for this glam metal band that was formed in 2017. The band is Mädhouse, and their latest album is Plead the Fifth.
And trying every time I copy these guys' name to get the umlaut above the A, just for accuracy's sake, but no, what I've heard of this so far is really, really good.
But you got to do what you can to differentiate yourself, because I imagine just the band name Mädhouse has probably been used so many times.
For sure.
Let's see. Yeah, so this band currently consists of Tommy Lovelace on vocals, Mickey Sticks, who was the founder of the band, on guitars and backing vocals, Tommy Black on guitars and backing vocals, Ricky D on bass, and Bobby B. Bastard on drums. Great name, for the record. Per the Reigning Phoenix website, the origins of this band go back to a spontaneous Hard and Heavy show. Based on what I read, it sounds kind of like a reality competition show where they're trying to put together a hard rock band.
Oh, okay.
18 musicians gathered, leading to this band's creation, and here we are with the final result. Their inspirations include legendary glam/pop metal acts like Motley Crue, Skid Row, and Rat, so already off on the right foot there. Their music blends classic glam metal with a modern hard rock edge. This is another example of a band with a sound that even though it stopped being popular, I don't think it ever needed to stop being made. I don't know why this stuff isn't viable still, and I know it's not, and it doesn't necessarily resonate or hit over here, but good music's good music, and these guys are creating it. I think bands with this kind of style, that kind of sleazy glam rock style, makes for great listening, especially during the summer. For whatever reason, it just feels like it fits. This being a band who just formed in 2017, they're a modern band. I'd love to see a band like this at Sonic Temple, especially now that we've expanded Sonic Temple to 5 stages. There's no reason you can't devote one day, one stage to glam metal, to modern, classic, traditional metal. You have festivals like Mad with Power. Why can't you just set up a stage that sounds like that at your Sonic Temple? I think that would be fantastic. Standout tracks on this album include We Run Riot, Bring on the Night, Wicked Hearts, Live and Tease, I'll See You in My Dreams, a giant cover for the record, and the track that I picked to listen to, the song Midnight Fever.
Which is a classic Giant song, and we'll mention Giant again later in our podcast. But yes, this is Mädhouse with Plead the Fifth. This is the opening track to that album, Midnight Fever. Let's listen to a little bit of that now. Yeah, that is a type of music that we hear quite often on this podcast that I don't understand why it's not still commercially viable. I don't know. I just have to think there's a lot of people like us out there who have no idea that this music's still being made because, like you've said before, and it is kind of beating a dead horse at this point, but there is no outlet for this type of music on even satellite radio, which is probably the biggest disappointment to me.
That many channels.
And I'll find out because I just got an upgraded satellite radio, so we'll see if like channel 8000 has some sort of channel on there that plays this kind of music. But to me, this type of music, the stuff we feature on this podcast, is perfect for satellite radio because, like, your classic rock, your mainstream rock, I can turn on the regular radio and still get that stuff. I mean, there's probably 25 minutes of commercials every hour on that stuff, but this is the stuff that I want to hear when I turn on satellite radio. I want you to expose me to different types of metal that I would have to otherwise hunt out myself. And these guys are really talented. This music is really good. And again, I think somebody along the line's got to make an effort to be able to get this kind of music in front of more people because there's still a lot of people our age out there that would absolutely buy this, absolutely would listen to this if they knew it was out there. But obviously there are some people finding it. That 147,000 plays on YouTube Music. So don't want to make it sound like these guys are, totally anonymous. But at the same time, all their stuff should have 147,000 views. Like, let's get these guys out there. But overall, this is really good.
Yeah, for sure. I think back to the days of, like, VH1 Classic, I think it was, that used to do it, where, like, they would obviously play a bunch of old stuff. But then every now and then they would throw in what they would call, like, the classic current track, where it was, like, one of those bands, but it was, like, new songs of theirs.
Yeah.
I always thought that was a really cool idea because, maybe not all of them were releasing really good music at that modern era, but some of them were. Like, why wasn't that being played? And I think satellite radio positioning itself as kind of like obviously you need to be a really big fan of radio to want to pay for this service. You have Lithium, you have Ozzy's Boneyard, you have Hair Nation. Why isn't there like the equivalent channel that plays that kind of music, but the modern versions of it? I think there's definitely a place for that. If not a huge appetite, there's certainly some.
I mean, that's kind of the stuff I've been coming across in this whole Frontiers Vault thing is, here's a band that had a big hit in 1985, and guess what? They've still been releasing music all this time, and they had something fairly recently. I mean, we come across it on the playlist all the time, and, I would absolutely sign up for a channel that's just playing the new stuff from these guys, just so that I know they're still out there. And, there might then be a chance if you can keep it popular for these guys to keep touring and, maybe not be playing a small venue. Maybe they can play a little larger one. So, it's all kind of a big circle that, when you don't get on the radio, people don't know your stuff's out there. Like, exposure is still a big thing. And it would be nice if these kind of groups would get out there. But this is really good. Yeah. You should definitely check this out.
Very solid album.
Mädhouse, their new release out on July the 11th. As always, you have 2 picks this week. What do you have for pick number 2?
Yeah, so for pick number 2, we're going out to Denver, Colorado for a heavy/power/death metal band. These guys are Celestial Wizard, and their newest album is Regenesis.
Yeah, this is another good one off the playlist. Again, no surprise. The playlist was absolutely loaded this week, and again, what I've heard of this so far, another really good album this week.
Yeah, so this is their next album, or their most recent album since 2022's Winds of the Cosmos. Per the Metal Archives, their band consists of Soren Bray on bass, Tim Gilman on drums, Nick Daggers on guitars and vocals, Will Perkins and Amethyst Noir on vocals. Will Perkins on guitars. I think I totally skipped that part. Their Bandcamp bio says the following. Formed in late 2017, Celestial Wizard brings a mix of fantasy and heavy metal to the table, giving you a front row seat to a sci-fi experience unlike any other. I've said it before, but I love when bands can kind of do the multiple vocal styles and make it work and blend it really well. And I think of bands that I like your Scar Symmetries, your Triviums. Add these guys to the list as far as a band that can do that. They nail it. Overall, I prefer the clean vocals over the harsh for these guys, and I think they could probably even incorporate more of the clean vocals. As kind of on the back half of the album, they tend to go away. But But that being said, the overall product is unique because of that, and it's never a bad thing. They're, again, another band that you want to hear more of, and you want to see them, especially when these guys are in Colorado. When you're out here on the other side of the country, you would like to see these guys' name pop up on any of the festivals around the area. Standout tracks on the album include, first, I should mention before I mention the standout tracks, they have a really cool, like, Western-sounding intro track that leads into the album. Hard to pick, like, a minute-long track as a standout, but it's still really cool and kind of sets the vibe for the album itself. Beyond that, you have Fangbearer, She is the Blade, Shores of Eternity, Emerald Eyes, and the track that I picked to listen to, the song Pale Horse.
Check these guys out, Celestial Wizard, with their new release, Regenesis. This is the second track off of that album, Pale Horse. So let's listen to a little bit of that now.
This iron holds my final rounds. The dead dealer's got her eye on me as the vultures circle on. But I won't rest until the pale horse takes me across the great beyond. Just dirt and blood that guides me as I lead into the wind. The sky begins to dawn good, like it knows just where I've been.
Yeah, you got a little taste of both sets of vocals there, with the harsh vocals coming in there at the end. But the music video that was on the playlist was really well done. And
Yeah.
again, we talk about it all the time. Bands that will go the extra mile to film a music video, I'm not saying that guarantees that we're going to pick them, but it definitely gets our attention as we're going through all these albums every week. It's like, oh, okay, they're going a step beyond just putting out a new album. Here's a music video. So that's always great. And again, yeah, I do prefer the clean vocals to harsh, but that's generally my style anyway. So that's not unusual. And I don't think the harsh vocals are I think they're well done in this album. And that's coming from me, who doesn't really prefer harsh vocals. I think that's a testament to the fact that this is a really good release. I'm kind of excited to see where these guys go from here.
Yeah, so much of it is personal preference, but I do feel like I kind of have a certain taste as far as what I think good harsh vocals sound versus bad harsh vocals, and these certainly are on the good side, so there's that. But yeah, I agree. Generally speaking, I like cleaner vocals. I think when you can do both, that's you're gonna appeal to a much greater audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So really good stuff, though. Celestial Wizard. Definitely check these guys out. New album out on July the 11th. As always, I have two picks, and we are headed south of the border for pick number one. We are headed to Mexico, and of course, our one of our featured labels, Frontiers Records. This is a melodic hard rock band from Torreon, Mexico. This is Laguna with the album The Ghost of Katrina. 3 Frontiers releases this week, so I as I've always said, I try not to pick 2 Frontiers releases when I make my picks, because I do really like the music that label puts out. This was the last of the 3 that I listened to, and it just that kind of set the bar pretty high for what it had to be to be the one that I picked, and I was absolutely blown away by these guys. This is really good stuff. Formed in 2018, this is their debut album. They listed One Desire and Heat as influences. We've talked about Heat quite a bit on this podcast in the past. Influenced by European and Scandinavian melodic hard rock. That's not really a surprise when you listen to the album. The band is made up of Andres Espada on lead vocals, Jose Mesta on lead guitars, Firio Verastegui on rhythm guitars, Daniel Mesta on bass, and Sergio Metz on drums. Produced by Jimmy Westerland, also of One Desire, and he also helped with Giant, so another mention of Giant. They've opened for Wasp, Timo Tolkki, and The Warning, so a group that's been out there quite a bit. They got a great melodic rock sound. It's, again, a little bit on the harder edge of the melodic rock, but I like that. It's great to see these guys break through with their first album 7 years after getting together. And kind of excited to see where this group goes from here, because I thought this was a really standout album. Standout tracks include Living on the Line, Punk Boy, Electric High, and the song we're going to listen to on the podcast is Ghost Behind the Mask. Let's listen to these guys. This is Laguna with their new release, The Ghost of Katrina. This is the second track off of this album, Ghost Behind the Mask. Let's listen to a little bit of that now.
Wheels marching on in the dark where I know that you lie. I keep on asking the Lord for a sign. How can I survive the ghost behind the mask? Oh, this night there's a cloud in my mind. I'm fading slowly, I feel misaligned. How can I survive the ghost behind the mask? Dark silhouettes.
Yeah, I mean, again, if you're a fan of melodic rock, this is up your alley. Two quick other notes before I throw it over to Mike. Album art is really alluring, like the image of Katrina, presumably, with the traditional face paint that you see in Mexico. Just really well done. And it's not a very long album, 39 minutes for 10 songs, so you can get through it pretty quickly. And it was a really easy listen front to back. So that is Laguna with The Ghost of Katrina. Mike, your thoughts on these guys?
Yeah, of the 3 Frontiers releases, this is the one when I went through the playlist that stood out to me the most as far as the strongest sound. I didn't get a chance to listen to this entire thing, but I definitely want to. Again, so much good music this week, and this is no different.
Yeah, it was really good. Again, it was the last one I listened to the Frontiers band, so I kind of already thought I had my mind made up of which one I wanted to pick, and ended up jumping to these guys. So definitely check it out. Laguna, their new release out on July the 11th. As always, I have 2 picks. We're going to head to Germany for pick number 2. This is a melodic heavy metal band from Stuttgart. This is Front Row Warriors with Running Out of Time. As I said, I always try to find a second band on these weeks where I pick Frontiers as the first band to not pick a second one, and these guys certainly made the cut. Formed in 2019, this is their second full-length album after 2023's debut, Wheel of Fortune. The band is made up of Elke G, or Guy, I'm not sure which, on vocals, Dominic Barth on guitar, Steph Benning Golub on guitar, Timo Michaels on bass, Richie Seibel on keyboards, and JG on drums. It was produced by Achim Kohler, who has worked with Primal Fear, among others. Their sound is just a great balance of 80s and 90s AOR and melodic rock. This is one of those albums where you've got some of the slower songs on there, and they're fine, but to me, like, the harder, faster songs are really where this band stood out, especially Elke's vocals. We spotlight a lot of female-fronted hard rock and heavy metal, and to me, she really stands out when they get to the stuff that is definitely a little more on the metal end of their sound. In addition to, and I'll actually mention it as one of the standout tracks, they got a great cover of Pat Benatar's Heartbreaker on this album.
Oh, nice.
Definitely worth checking out. I almost picked it as the featured song because when you hear her voice singing Heartbreaker, Pat Benatar has to be an influence of hers for sure, because there's definitely a lot of vocal tone characteristics that they share together. But this is really good stuff from these guys. Excited to see as they continue to grow beyond their second album, where they go from here. Standout tracks include Running Out of Time, Rise Against, Heartbreaker, and the song that we are going to play on the podcast, Turn the Tide. So let's check these guys out now. This is Front Row Warriors with their new album, Running Out of Time. This is the opening track on that album, Turn the Tide. Let's listen to a little bit of that now. Yeah, I thought this was really, really good release. And again, definitely encourage you to check out a lot of the really harder and faster stuff off this album. To me, that was the stuff that really stood out to me. Although, again, I think it's really good all the way through. But excited to kind of see where these guys go from here. Front Row Warriors with their release, Running Out of Time. Mike, your thoughts?
Yeah, this was another really solid one. I feel like trying to think of the best way to say this. I feel like there was a period of time where chances are if you ran into a female-fronted metal band, they would be very symphonic metal.
Yeah.
And I think we've, over the years and months, we see more and more just metal bands with female singers. Like, it doesn't seem to feel like a gimmick as much as, no, this is just a really good singer. She's a female. This is our metal band.
Yeah.
And I think that's always encouraging. Not that I don't like symphonic metal, but I feel like that at a time that was kind of like the niche where you'd put your female vocalist, and now it just seems like they're all over the place, and obviously that's a good thing.
Yeah, for sure. And again, I definitely encourage you to listen to Heartbreaker. It's a really great, very authentic cover, and again, you really kind of see where her voice shines. And again, like you said, really slotting into that harder rock vocal instead of just the symphonic, over-the-top, operatic type vocals that you would see. But
Rock of Angels Records getting mentioned a lot.
Yeah, they're showing up quite a bit. Really like the stuff they're putting out. The bands they've signed have been really, really good. So shout out to them. And shout out to my last pick of this week, Front Row Warriors, with their release out on July the 11th. That takes care of our new music. Time to head into the vault, where Mike and I will each talk about a classic album you need to check out. And we've mentioned this is basically the third time Mike has gone through the alphabet, and that means there are going to be points as you go through a third time with certain letters that could become pretty challenging. I believe we're technically up to the letter V this week. Which doesn't give you a lot of options, so you have taken a very creative way to solve this problem this week, and at the same time are presenting what I would consider to be an entry-level album. If you're looking to get into the music of the mid to late 80s and early 90s, and you're looking for a way to get in the door there, maybe you have a friend that you're trying to convince to listen to this era of music, and you're like, what can I do to kind of get them in the door? This album you're going to talk about, to me, is almost the ideal starting point to just hand them this and say, just wear this out, and then you'll know where you need to go from there.
It's such a time capsule, not just because this is all older rock music, but the fact that this is a CD that essentially, in 1998 was the best thing you had, as far as, now we have Spotify playlists, we have all sorts of music streaming services. Back in 1998, we were just, especially here kind of in this part of the country, we might have just started getting into music downloads. Like, that was a pretty rare thing still. Not everyone was doing it. A lot of people didn't have high-speed internet, and I remember when I first started downloading music, it was on like a secondary landline where you just hoped that when you woke up the next morning, all your MP3s had downloaded and you didn't get disconnected. So, 1998, a little before that, you had compilation albums, and there was a company, Razor and Tie, that had a crap ton of them. That was like their thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm someone who, when I started getting into music in the mid to late 90s, the music I was getting into was largely inspired by our older brother, just the music he was into. He was a teenager through the 80s. He listened to all the hair metal, the pop metal, thrash metal, all that stuff, and that was kind of what got me into music. But by then, none of that stuff was popular anymore, and without streaming services or downloads, you couldn't just get a hold of any of those songs whenever you wanted. You had to buy a CD. You weren't going to buy, I'm basically doing the infomercial. You're not going to buy all of the individual albums to get all these songs. Thankfully, a compilation like Monsters of Rock existed. I mentioned this thing came out in 1998 through Razor and Tie, and if you wanted to get into that pop metal, the hard rock of the 80s and early 90s, this was where you went. Like, it's really amazing. Like, I kind of take for granted now, because you have all this music around you constantly, you take for granted just how amazing the playlist on this album was.
Yeah.
Especially for someone who was just getting into this music, discovering new bands. It's like, you have the vast majority of the really big acts were represented on this. You had Quiet Riot, Great White, Alice Cooper, Europe, Rat, Warrant, Whitesnake, Poison, Winger, Living Colour, Twisted Sister, Judas Priest, Cinderella, 38 Special, Autograph, Night Ranger. And in most cases, it was their biggest song. It was Come On Feel the Noise. It was Poison from Alice Cooper, Final Countdown from Europe, Cherry Pie from Warrant. Now, in hindsight, if I were to go back and recreate a playlist with all these bands, would I pick all these songs? Probably not, but they're the perfect hit songs to get you into this kind of music. And you think now, like, how huge a song like Cult of Personality is because of pro wrestling, and I was aware of the song long before CM Punk started using it.
Yeah. CM Punk might have been influenced by this album.
It's entirely possible. But yeah, you take for granted just, again, how easily you can get a hold of music nowadays. And back then you couldn't. So you had this. They had other similar compilations, their Monster Ballads compilation, Monster Madness, whose infomercials were, I think, just as iconic as the albums themselves. If you go and look them up on YouTube, just classic, terrible infomercials, but they were everywhere, and they got stuck in your head, and it introduced me to a lot of music that I then took and went further with, got a hold of the original albums, got a hold of the discographies from a lot of these bands, and that's really what built a lot of the taste I have now, that and online downloading of European metal bands. But got to give credit to Monsters of Rock. It's just a great compilation.
Yeah, for sure. I was just looking. There's a list of former Razor and Tie artists that has.
Yeah, I didn't realize how many just original artist albums they had under their label. I looked a little into their history and just bands that I'm into that I didn't realize Razor and Tie was releasing their albums.
Yeah, it's kind of wild, their influence on music. And again, to me, this was the next step after the original. To me, was your Columbia House deals where you would pay 1 penny and get 5 albums or whatever it was, whatever those deals were. That was kind of the original. Hey, we're going to send you a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And there's going to be some good stuff on there. You can cancel anytime, but of course, they were counting on people not to cancel, and they were making money off of them. And then you got these compilation CDs that were like, hey, we know you don't want all of that stuff because a lot of it sucks, or a lot of it's just tracks you're never going to listen to again. You're paying for a ton. But what if we took the best of the stuff there and we put it on 1 CD or 2 CDs? And then we give you that. And then, that led the way. That was the precursor to your Spotify playlist, to, all the things we've seen. And I guess there's one more step in between, which you took full advantage of, which was the ability to download these individual tracks and burn your own compilation CDs. You had, dozens and dozens of those. I had a handful.
I have so many of those.
Like I still have a handful. There was a couple, I think, in my car when I just traded my car and I had to clean out that somehow had hung on all these years. But, that was kind of the next step. Now you have the Spotify playlist, the YouTube music, all the other things where it just basically does all that for you now. But this is kind of where that genre of, putting the best stuff together based on your type of music that you really like. This is where this really started. And like you said, the commercials really oversold the product. As much as I love this album and love the songs on here, you would have thought that these were the greatest songs ever written.
They taught us how to love. They taught us how to live. Keep that in mind.
You definitely should go, if you haven't watched the commercials, if nothing else, check them out. And then there was a second volume in 2000 with some classics on there. Obviously we're stretching how much of some of these are rock. You had Heat of the Moment by Asia.
Owner of a Lonely Heart by Yes.
Yeah. Your Love by The Outfield is a criminally underrated song. Like, that's a great song that's on there. And then in 2006, they had a platinum edition that included most of what was on the first one, but then also a second disc, which included
In My Dreams, Dokken.
Yeah,
great track.
That's a great song.
Empire, Queensryche.
Yeah. Bonham's Wait for You, and then there's a retail version also that kind of combines the two into one release. But yeah, I mean, that was kind of the way you got music back in the 90s, is you got this. And of course, this company carried on. They did like the Kids Bop things. You mentioned some of the other brands they got into. So they clearly milked every last drop of money they could milk out of this concept before eventually it probably went away just because of the era of streaming music.
It was really the first time they were like, hey, you're paying too much for full albums, for songs you don't want. Pay less and get just the songs you want. And I feel like that's that's something that everyone figured out eventually. Like, why am I paying $16 for these 12 songs when I only like 4 of them? And now we've just taken that to even further extremes where, when we do our research and you look at some of the plays on some of the albums we pick, it's just like the Mädhouse one was a good example where you had some of the tracks well over 100,000 plays. Then you had others who had like 300 plays.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if that's just the result of an algorithm picking just select songs, or if that's intentional from the listener. I don't know, because that whole album is solid. I didn't listen to one of those 300 play songs and think, well, now I see why this one didn't get played. No, they were all great. So it's just funny how if you look at that album, you're like, well, this is the one that makes it onto the Monsters of Rock 2025 compilation because it's got all these plays, but that may or may not necessarily be your favorite song off that album.
And it's clear that people use YouTube Music the way they use Spotify or whatever it is, where it's like the algorithm is throwing those big songs in there to your playlist where you looked up something and it got you to those songs. I can't imagine there may be a ton of people that are doing what we do, which is to pull up the entire album and listen to it front to back. But you should, because again, like you said, the popular one, the one the algorithm thinks is the best song, may not be the best song. Oftentimes when we pick the track we're going to listen to, it's not necessarily the one that has the most plays on it.
Well, I think we've talked about it before where there are bands and songs that your favorite song from that band isn't their hit.
Yeah.
There are a lot of great songs on this one album, but you never hear about this one song over here, and I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, that happens a lot.
It does. So, but yeah, Monsters of Rock is amazing. You should definitely check it out. And again, if you got that friend and you're looking to get them into this type of music, that's a great entry point. You can probably listen to the whole album on YouTube Music now.
So the first compilation album I made years and years ago, probably late 90s, first track on there, Shot in the Dark, Ozzy Osbourne.
There you go.
That's a great album for the record. I got all sorts of classics. Peace of Mind, Boston.
Do you have a date on when you created that?
I don't on here. I don't know if I could find it somewhere, but it had to be like 1998-ish.
Because that to me is as interesting as what you have on there.
Rebel Yell, Billy Idol. Let's see. Coal Chamber with Ozzy, Shock the Monkey. Great cover song. Hard Habit to Break, Chicago.
That's
Krista Berg, Don't Pay the Ferryman.
Yeah.
Major Tom, Peter Schilling.
In case you're wondering why we choose so many different types of music on this podcast, the influences are
Rock the Casbah, The Clash.
Yeah. That video is what I remember more about that song, I think, than anything.
Yeah.
But
The Monsters 2, we got Somebody to Shove, Soul Asylum kicking us off. I could pick these for my vault and we could just dissect the playlist.
I mean, where was Mike's headspace when he made this album in 1999? Like,
they get kind of wild as the volumes
I'm
go
sure
on.
as you start downloading more exotic music.
Volume
probably.
3 has Right Here, Right Now by Jesus Jones.
I love Jesus Jones. That's great stuff. But
On the same album, In Your Wildest Dreams, Moody Blues.
there you go.
Great track. Life is a Highway.
And honestly, some of that is kind of gets into our vault or our power trio question today. We'll get to that in a moment because I still have a vault pick to go to too. But it does talk about how our music influences are very wide, and because of that, I did want to take a chance today to spotlight some of the stuff that may not be in the hard rock and heavy metal category as kind of a reflection of some of our music tastes.
Yeah.
So we'll get to that in a moment. But let's get to my vault pick next. And as I mentioned, I'm going through the Frontiers bands, 2 weeks on each letter. This is the randomizer pick this week, and it was a good one. We're going to take a look at John Waite with his release from 2011, Rough and Tumble. John Waite, I think, probably best known for a couple of different songs. Obviously, his solo career best known for Missing You from 1984, which is a classic for sure. But, of course, he was also the frontman for the Babies and probably better known as the frontman of Bad English. Of course, When I See You Smile, that's a classic from the late 80s. This album was his 10th, and as far as I can tell, his last singles album released in 2011 by Frontiers. The band at the time, John Waite obviously on vocals. I know Luis Maldonado's name has shown up on Frontier stuff. I forgot to go back and look and see everything he's been involved in. He was on electric and acoustic guitar along with Shane Fontaine, Kyle Cook, Tim Hogan, Mike Webb, Billy Wilkes, Fred Eltringham, Roger Carter, Bobby Keys, and Jennifer Page all getting credits on this. This is a very like the first half of this album is very bluesy to me. Feels maybe even like a half step beyond a group like Whitesnake as far as like as the bluesiness. Like it definitely is a little bit more that way. But there are some songs in the back half of the album that I thought were a little harder and a little more reminiscent of maybe the stuff that you heard from Bad English back in the late 80s. But overall, it's a quality listen. It's great that, obviously this album's 14 years old now, but
practically new. By our standards.
By our standards, that's pretty new. It's great to hear he was still sounding great, and the good news is he's still out there touring. He's got dates on his website, and they're all over the U.S., including some dates in the Midwest and South from mid-August through mid-October. So if you want to see John Waite, I know he's doing a show with Foreigner. I think he's got a couple of other dates where he's doing with some other bands, but it's great to see he's still got a pretty full tour schedule. So, I think if you're a fan of that type of music from the 80s, I think, it'd be worth checking out John Waite, that he's still out there. Standout tracks on this album include Rough and Tumble, Shadows of Love, If You Ever Get Lonely, and Better Off Gone. It's always kind of fun to see, these acts or these artists from the 80s and 90s. Again, as we talked about earlier, they continue to release music even after maybe they're not in the widespread spotlight. But John Waite was still getting it done in 2011, and as based on his tour schedule, he's still getting it done in 2025, which is great to see. But just another guy who's had a heck of a career.
Yeah, absolutely, legend. And again, great to see these guys releasing music and touring still, because you just never know. I've not listened to that, but I'm sure it's great.
Yeah, it was really enjoyable listen. So next week we move on to the letter K. So we got K for 2 weeks and the Frontiers Vault picks, but a lot of good stuff, and it's been great to catch up with some stuff that I probably should have checked out sooner, but just now getting around to it. But that is the Vault for this week. It is time to get on to the Power Trio, our hard rock hat trick, our question of the week, if you will. And as I mentioned a moment ago, this was a chance for us to kind of expand our horizons a little bit. We, as you kind of gathered, and probably have gathered from the 76 weeks we've done this podcast, is we have some pretty interesting music taste. We love our hard rock and heavy metal, but a lot of our influences in music come from outside of that genre. So this week's Power Trio is a chance for us to pick 3 of our favorite songs that are not hard rock or heavy metal songs. And of course, we would like to know what your 3 are, so please join our Discord. We've got the link pinned in both the chats. Let us know your favorite 3 non-hard rock or heavy metal songs, and we'll take a look at those and maybe share them on the podcast in a little bit later. But this is a pretty wide net. I'd be surprised if there's any overlap here, because there's just so much music out there. Did we get anything from Shane this week?
Yes, we did.
All right.
And I think the fact that you specified non-hard rock made it easier for me. Like, if it had been non-rock, and you basically cut out anything that was even, like, rock adjacent, I think that would have been a more challenging thing. And if that would have been the case, I think there might have been some overlap. But with Shane's picks, because there's one that he picked that if I couldn't pick rock music, this would have been probably one of the ones I would have picked.
Yeah.
At least the artist, if not the song. But for Shane, his 3 are at number 1, Bonnie Tyler's "Holding Out for a Hero."
That's a great song.
Which, from her 1986 album Secret Dreams of Forbidden Fire. I didn't know this at the time, I don't think, but I saw it on the Wikipedia, and it makes all the sense in the world. I didn't realize that Jim Steinman wrote and produced a lot of her work.
Oh.
And he's the guy that collaborated with Meatloaf on all the Meatloaf stuff, too.
It makes
the
sense.
piano player and the, the writer and producer for a good portion of it. Makes a lot of sense now. I just didn't realize it.
Yeah, for sure.
Number 2, Garth Brooks, "The Dance."
That's a great song. Like, there's a lot of Garth Brooks, that because it was a Garth Brooks song that got me thinking of this topic, even though I ended up not picking that song in my 3. But The Dance, man, you guys talk about another time capsule song. That takes you back to every dance in the late 90s.
Didn't know that was off of his debut album from 1989. Like, I know, like, In Pieces, I think, was the one.
Yeah.
And I kind of know his greatest hits, but I didn't know, like, how his songs broke down on their studio albums. And, like, his 1989 debut is solid.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, Garth Brooks very much like his country was very much pop crossover. A lot of the stuff he had that ended up on the pop charts as well, and it was just really quality music.
Well, I think for a lot of people who hate modern country music, he's the villain. He's
Yeah.
the guy that kind of bridged that gap. And for someone like me who's not a big country fan, I like a lot of his stuff. I don't care about a lot of the stuff that happened after him, but you know, it's hard to argue with Garth Brooks. The dude's got some hits.
Yeah, no question about that. He definitely was a hit writing machine.
Number 3, I'm aware of the group. I feel like I knew one of their songs, but I'm not sure what it was. The group is the Scissor Sisters, and the song is "I Can't Decide" from their 2006 album "Ta-Da." Wikipedia refers to them as pop rock, pop, glam rock, new disco, and electro clash, whatever that is.
I feel like I don't know if I've heard somebody on YouTube cover that song, and maybe that's where the name is familiar, because you don't forget a name like that.
No, and listening to that song and some of their stuff, it kind of gives me like this modern Elton John vibe.
Okay.
But then I thought maybe I was mistaking them for a stoner metal band that I found years ago called Scissor Fight. They had songs like "Victory Over Horseshit," "The Dredge," "86 Sucker," "Backwoods." I don't know what song of theirs I remember, but there was definitely one that was really cool. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, that might have been what I was thinking. I don't remember, but either way, great picks from Shane.
Yeah, Shane gave us some really good stuff. Chris has given us some picks, and he used the highlight the my message thing, which is something
Fancy.
that's now a feature on our page. Again, please
Freaked me out. I didn't know what it meant.
please subscribe. We do appreciate that. But what does Chris have for us this week?
Yeah, so let's see. For tonight's Power Trio, I rushed my search, but I think all 3 of these are big non-metal hits and bands for me. Number 1, we have the Smiths with "There Is a Light That Never Goes Out." Smiths are definitely popular.
Yeah.
Not my thing, but that's kind of the point of this category.
Yeah.
We got the Pixies with "Hey." Pixies are classic.
Hey, ya.
I thought about "Hey Ya," though. That's a good one, too. And the Gin Blossoms, "Hey Jealousy."
That's a great song.
Yeah, Gin Blossoms had some good stuff.
For sure. Chris is the highlighter. There could be only one. Yeah, Hey Jealousy is definitely one I remember well. And there was a lot of pop rock from the 90s that I could have picked. I feel like I used some of that recently, so I did kind of steer away from some of it, even though I could
I
have
had
just
trouble
repeated.
figuring out where the line is drawn, where I felt like what I was picking was too rock still.
Yeah.
And that was the awkward thing.
Yeah, to me, I mean, again, we're kind
There
of
are
making
no
our
real
own
rules.
rules.
Yeah.
Like, if you wanted to make rules, to me, it's like, is it something that would have been on like a Q102 back in the day? Like, is it one that would, or is it strictly like a WEBN or
4.7
Yeah.
WTUE.
yeah,
Dayton's rock station.
So it's like, I don't know. I mean, that I definitely went. I have a pop song a pop song, a country song, and I don't know what. I guess the third one's a folk song. I guess I don't
Did
know.
you pick Gordon Lightfoot?
I did. I did. Well, actually, I technically picked him twice, but we'll talk about that. But technically, the other one is also sung by somebody else. So,
I picked Gordon Lightfoot as well.
all right. Well, let's see if we have an overlap.
So beyond my pick of his, the other ones I picked are very soft rock.
Yeah,
Number 1, Elton John, "Someone Saved My Life Tonight."
that's a great song. Like, just amazing.
Just tremendous. Off his 1975 album Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy. This was on the radio so much back in the day. I don't know why, but it just seemed like you would always hear it on the radio. Back in like the high school days, going to Kempo lessons with John and Rachel, we would always hear it. And there's nothing more weird than all of us singing "Someone Saved My Life Tonight" on our way to karate. That's
That's very strange.
very,
but-
very odd, but the song has kind of stuck with me ever since. Number 2, quite possibly the best soft rock group ever, Air Supply. And
yeah,
their track "All Out of Love."
yeah.
I could have picked so many Air Supply songs. These guys were amazing at what they did. Their greatest hits is an amazing album. If you're kind of in a mellow soft rock mood, listen to some Air Supply because they were songwriting geniuses.
I was just saying, it just reminded me of another song I should have picked. I'll talk about it when we get to my picks. But thinking of Air Supply made me think of a group that an act is adjacent to them.
Okay.
So
And finally, Gordon Lightfoot. Could have picked several of his songs. I went with "Sundown."
okay,
From his
did not- we did not-
1974 album "Sundown."
That's a great song.
Yeah, I wanted to branch out a little farther into something that was just totally not rock, but every time I tried to do that, whatever I come up with just wasn't as good as any of my 3 picks.
Yeah.
So I just kept settling back into Gordon Lightfoot, and that's why he stayed on my list.
Yeah, that's a great pick. I mentioned I kind of have 2 Gordon Lightfoot songs, even though one is technically under another artist, but I did not pick Sundown.
Was it Coolio? Did he cover a Gordon Lightfoot song?
He should have, maybe. I don't know. But Gordon Lightfoot's got a ton of great stuff. But the pick that popped into my head that I should have picked was "Ride Like the Wind" by Christopher Cross, because that also has Michael McDonald singing backup vocals on that, which is great.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of yacht rock that would have probably fit into this category as well.
Yeah.
But I steered away from that. One of my favorite pop rock songs of all time, by one of my favorite pop rock bands of all time, was "Joyride" by Roxette. That's my first pick.
Oh, yeah, it's good.
Roxette was really good. Unfortunately, their lead singer has since passed away. But that to me, the video and them, driving down the road, and it's just they've got so much great music. Any chance I get to talk about Roxette, I like to bring them up.
Oh yeah,
They're
classic
really
stuff.
good. The second one, which is technically, or no, I didn't end up picking that one. The one I was going to pick, because I wanted to pick a Marty Robbins song, because Marty Robbins obviously very important. I was going to pick "Ribbon of Darkness," which was written by Gordon Lightfoot. But I ended up going ahead and going with "El Paso."
I think El Paso's the better song, ultimately.
El Paso is the better song. To me, El Paso is a genre-defining song. When you're talking about Western storytelling type music,
Yeah.
it is the gold standard. Something I didn't know, because I wanted to find some kind of note about it, because, I don't know how many of our fans will be interested in the song El Paso, is that El Paso was frequently performed by the Grateful Dead in concert. The song entered the band's repertoire in 1969, remained there until the band parted ways after Garcia's passing in 1995. In total, it was performed 389 times. It was sung by rhythm guitarist Bob Weir, with Jerry Garcia contributing harmony vocals. So
The crazy thing about that is there are probably people who saw all 389 performances of that.
yes.
With the following that the Grateful Dead had, that would not have shocked me at all.
100%. But El Paso, if you've never heard it, it's definitely worth going back and listening to it. It's Marty Robbins telling a story. The other thing I read is there were obviously 2 follow-up songs. There was a song about Felina, who's the woman in the song, titled Felina. Then, of course, he came back with El Paso City, where the singer of the song is flying over El Paso and reminiscing about the story that he heard about El Paso. Evidently, there was going to be another, a final chapter of the El Paso story, but unfortunately, Robbins passed away in 1982 before he could finish the final chapter of it. But to me, it's a gold standard of classic country music, and one that, what's funny is it's not that song, but it is Big Iron, which is another one of a classic Marty Robbins songs that has kind of popped up in modern, VTuber culture. I've seen some VTubers actually covering that Big Iron, which I followed one because I flipped by a karaoke and she was singing Big Iron, playing a banjo. I'm like, sold.
That's so bizarre.
So it's kind of wild that one's coming. But that's another really great story.
The funny thing about that, about Marty Robbins just in general, is I've been getting those recommendations for CD players, new fancy tech like CD players and MP3 players.
Yes.
And one of them, a guy was talking about kind of the modding scene that people have created around the old iPod classics. And no kidding, the dude on his iPod definitely had the album art for Gunfighter Ballads from Marty Robbins, which I have the vinyl of as well, the pink cover vinyl.
It's a classic album cover.
Yeah, great album cover, great album, but it's just funny that you have this crazy audiophile who's into modding his iPod, and that's what he had on the screen. It's just kind of cool.
That's fantastic. And I mentioned Gordon Lightfoot. I went with "If You Could Read My Mind."
Great song.
Written about his divorce, very much a kind of reminiscent story as he looked back on kind of what happened and what went wrong. What is interesting, note about that song, is the chorus of the Duran Duran song "Save a Prayer" is based off of "If You Could Read My Mind." So
was not aware of that.
I was not aware of that either, but that's another great song.
Yeah.
Maybe one of their most underrated songs, to be completely honest. It's not.
It's a very kind of mellow song.
Yeah.
Compared to some of their more brighter pop anthem hits.
But when you think about the chorus of that song, it does feel like it could kind of fit in the same vibe as If You Could Read My Mind. So, yeah, we'll revisit this because there's so many non-metal and rock songs that we could talk about on the podcast. And again, we want to know yours. So join our Discord and let us know what your favorite ones are.
And one more thing about that song real quick. People
Yeah.
should check out Rick Beato's video where he talks about just how great that song is and breaks it down. It's all of his videos are great, but that one in particular, for a song that I wasn't super familiar with until I saw his video, really shows you how much it resonates with people.
Gordon Lightfoot, as much as he was a legend and sadly has passed away, but played right up until the very end, maybe still underrated
Yeah.
all time as just a genius mind of music and the music and the songs and everything he did. Of course, I mentioned Ribbon of Darkness. Of course, Marty Robbins kind of made that a hit. It was a song that was written by Gordon Lightfoot, and I'm sure there's dozens more like that. But a true legend who, again, I think probably because of the genre, kind of a more mellow style of music that maybe doesn't always appeal to everybody, maybe gets overlooked sometimes when you talk about the great artists, even great Canadian artists. But he's definitely one of the all-time best.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's our non-hard rock and heavy metal power trio to wrap up today's episode of the Hard Rock Empire, which we will wrap up at this time. Appreciate you joining us a little bit early this week. We'll be back at our normal time, 7 o'clock Eastern next Sunday night with the music of July the 18th, so be sure to join us on the Hard Rock Empire. And again, we are now monetized to some degree on Twitch, so please tell a buddy, tell a friend, stop on by. We'd really appreciate the support there. And again, it allows us to continue to do more cool things on the Hard Rock Empire. So come see us here on twitch.tv/NerdcastEmpire or youtube.com/@NerdcastEmpire. That's where you'll find us each and every week. Big thanks to Chris for joining us in the chat. Big thanks to Mike for all of his work on this podcast. Big thanks to Stove Lake Media for their continued support of our podcast. And a big thanks to you whenever and wherever you are listening. We'll be joining you again next Sunday night for another episode of the Hard Rock Empire. Until then, don't forget to join the Empire, the Nerdcast Empire.